This is an overview of the AAHRP accreditation and site visit process for study teams. If you're not familiar with AAHRP, AAHRP is the Association for the Accreditation of Human Research Protection Programs. It's an independent nonprofit group that was founded back in 2001. And the whole point of AAHRP was to create a set of standards to ensure research compliance and to promote a uniform approach for the protection of human participants. Now, certainly, accreditation isn't required, but it's highly recommended, especially in the context of reliance and single IRB review, where an organization might be looking to rely on an external IRB. And one of the questions they might ask is the IRB accredited? And if it isn't, generally there's some hesitation about relying on that IRB for oversight of a study. So it's really important because it communicates to the public a strength of an organization's commitment to the protection of human research participants. The University of Minnesota has been accredited since 2004, and we are currently in the renewal process, which is about every 5 years. I wanted to call out a special distinction that was made by AAHRP back in 2017. This was in recognition of the work that was done around policies and procedures regarding the protection of adults with limited or diminished capacity to consent to research. Distinctions are not given frequently, so this just reflects the significant work and commitment of the university for protecting research participants. I want to provide an overview of the accreditation process. There are multiple steps involved. This includes the submission of multiple applications, submission of all of our policies and procedures, lists of active studies, all to AAHRP for review. The accreditation process also includes a site visit. Our site visit is scheduled July 22nd through the 24th, and this will be conducted remotely due to COVID-19. We will have site visitors evaluating documents, conducting interviews, and then ultimately creating a site visit report that will go to the AAHRP Council for review in the fall. Once we know more about the status of our accreditation, we will share that with the research community via an IRB newsletter. Now, certainly you've been invited to be interviewed by AAHRPP, and sometimes that can be intimidating, but don't worry, keep calm and don't panic. It's going to be fine. The site visitors that are coming here to the institution are great individuals. They're great experts within the human research field, and we're lucky to have them. So I mentioned, these site visitors, they're from institutions like us. They have a background in human research, and they're certainly from other AAHRPP accredited institutions. So as I mentioned, we have 4 site visitors. Typically there's about 2, but because we're such a big institution, we have 4. Dr. Frank and Dr. Gordon have a background in pediatrics. And then Michelle Kennett is one of our non-clinical site visitors. She's from the University of Missouri. And then Nichelle Cobb is from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Her background and expertise is in Reliance and single IRB. She also has worked on the Smart IRB initiative, if you're familiar with that. And I mentioned too, the site visitors are really just exploring and evaluating our processes and procedures to ensure that we're applying what we say we do. And all of that goes back to the regulations governing research, but also those AAHRPP standards. If you're interested in looking at those standards, I did provide a link and that will be shared with you. Now, the interview process is not super formal. It's really a discussion, and it's going to be as a group. So you are going to be paired with other researchers or research staff to talk about various things when it comes to the big picture program of human research protections at the university. Now, of course, due to COVID-19, the site visit is being conducted remotely. So the interview will be through Zoom. You will have a meeting on your calendar that includes the Zoom link. And then what's going to happen is you're going to be placed into the Zoom meeting room and kind of in a waiting space. And then once it's your time to enter into the interview, one of our staff will admit you into the actual interview room or space. Now, we do ask that you enable your video camera. The site visitors would love to see you face to face, if you will, even though it's via Zoom. So it's easier to have a conversation. And again, it's certainly a significant matter to be interviewed by AAHRPP, but at the end of the day, this is a conversation. They're going to ask you questions about the program and specifically your role in the context of human research here at the U. So I'm going to go through a couple example questions so you can get a sense of what they might ask you. But I want to first point out that if they ask you a question and you don't know the answer, it's absolutely okay to say you don't know. Just be honest. It's always better to say you don't know rather than to guess. You could say, I don't know the answer to that question, but I know who I would go to get help with that. Again, be honest. If you don't know the answer, just indicate that. So here's an example. What is the HRPP? So historically, there's always been this misnomer that the HRPP is the IRB. And it's really not the case. This Human Research Protection Program is a system of a whole bunch of groups and individuals interacting together to achieve that common aim to protect research participants in the conduct of human research. So it's this big system or web of individuals and groups working together to ensure that protection is there. Another question might be, what is the IRB's purpose here? And certainly the IRB's focus is always on protecting the rights, safety, and welfare of human subjects in research. We have a web page that goes through everything about our IRB here at the U as well. If you want to learn more about how many panels we have on the biomedical side or on the social behavioral side, all of that is there for you too if you want to look at that more. Another question, and this is where they might start getting into the weeds to really understand what you know about what the rules are when it comes to human research. So they might ask, what rules or guidelines do we follow when it comes to human research studies? Now here at the U, we adopted the HRPP toolkit, and that toolkit is available on the IRB website, and it includes information about the Common Rule, FDA, the Privacy Rule or HIPAA, Minnesota laws, other university policies and procedures, or other guidelines that have to be followed when it comes to human research. So that toolkit facilitates the understanding of all of those rules and regulations. Now, certainly the toolkit is primarily used by IRB staff, IRB members, or other HRPP groups, but there are a couple of those documents that are really important for you to know about, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the toolkit is open, completely transparent on the IRB website. It is everything that we use to evaluate human research here at the U. Another question they might have is, how do you find out about new or revised policies or procedures? Now, if you recall, the revised Common Rule came out, and a lot of the communication around the revised Common Rule came through newsletters, the website, various town halls. Anytime we revise the toolkit, especially when it comes to researcher-facing relevant materials, there are typically a newsletter, website changes, and a town hall to go through those changes. So this is just kind of a refresher of here are all the things that we use to communicate that information to you. And I'll say, one of the big questions that AAHRP always has is, where can you go for help? And it's really important for them to see where there are connections within the research community or with the research community and the IRB. So first and foremost, the investigator manual is your go-to. This is that one key toolkit document that tells you everything that you need when preparing for IRB review, what happens during IRB review, and then what are the expectations post IRB approval. That is your primary go-to. Of course, we have the website. You can contact the IRB and many of our oversight groups by email. You can also request consultations, and certainly right now those consultations are remote. Or you could visit, again remotely, the Clinical Research Support Center. Another question that AAHRP might have is about training. What training did you have? And that question can vary somewhat. They could specifically ask about IRB training requirements. And certainly we have our city courses that you have to take. If you're a biomedical researcher, you take the one course. If you're a social behavioral researcher, you take the other. That's the primary driver for IRB training, and those requirements are posted on our website. The other training that is available to you, of course, we have continuous education opportunities. There is a lot of content or online modules in the university's training hub. If you're not familiar with that already, I highly recommend you take a look at that. Then, of course, we offer in-person and remote training sessions and events throughout the year. And those are often sponsored by CTSI or even the IRB or other ancillary review groups like the Privacy Office. So I know that's a lot of information, but again, keep calm, don't panic, just relax and be yourself in that interview. When you're thinking about, what else should I do to prepare for this interview? I recommend you look at some key toolkit documents and online resources before your group interview. The first is the policies that the university has when it comes to human research. We have 3 core IRB policies that are unique to us. One is around the Minnesota laws affecting human research. Minnesota has some unique expectations for various types of research. That policy is there to help you understand those. If you're not familiar where the policies are, they're in the toolkit on the IRB website. You click on toolkit and then drop down to policies. All 3 are right there for you. The other involves adults with impaired decision making. So that goes back to the capacity assessment tools that are required, and additional safeguards that are needed for research that involves those adults with impaired decision-making capacity. Then also we have a policy unique to research involving adults under court jurisdiction. Again, those are unique to us here at the U. There are 2 manuals in the toolkit, and one you should already know now, which is the investigator manual, but there's also an AAHRPP manual. Now, I'm not saying go sit down with the investigator manual, because I think it's about 100 pages now, and read it front to back. But look at the table of contents. Get familiar with what's there, and just recall that it's your go-to for everything when it comes to human research here at the U. What's required for IRB submission, during IRB review, post IRB review. It kind of covers the whole process. We also have information about reliance in the manual as well. The AAHRPP manual is a little bit different. That manual covers information about the various groups or oversight committees that are part of the AAHRPP. If that's something you haven't looked at before, take a look at it, because you'll get a sense of what are those various groups and what is their role in human research. So you'll have a better sense of who's a part of this big AAHRPP at the University of Minnesota. Well, that's all I have today, and I hope this was helpful for you in preparation for the site visit interview. I'm sure you'll do just fine. And again, be yourself, be honest, and we hope you learn a lot from the process.